He was ready to kill to protect his pack. But the one who was supposed to attack stepped between man and predator, changing everything. In the lair lay a weary she-wolf. Her eyes were closed and her cheeks glistened with tears. Ever since she lost her pups, life seemed to have stopped for her. A wolf who had brought her food several times couldn't distract her from her grief. She quietly faded away from melancholy. A huge wolf, the pack leader, wandered aimlessly through the forest. He didn't know how to help his friend until he stumbled upon a small puppy sitting on the forest road, whining pitifully for help. How he ended up in the woods was unknown. Most likely he was simply abandoned. For some, that is simpler than loving, caring, and nurturing. Thankfully, he hadn't been tied to a tree, or worse might have occurred. The experienced wolf approached the little one and started sniffing him. The puppy still smelled of humans, which meant he had been here not long. The wolf didn't know what to do with him, but intuition told the predator to take the pup to the lair. Carefully, as if it were his own offspring, he took the puppy in his teeth and carried him to his she-wolf. The little one eagerly began to suckle milk, while the she-wolf, with the same eagerness and tenderness, started licking the soft fur of the baby. She felt like a mother once more. This small grey bundle filled the void in her heart. Warmth spread through her body again, like when her pups slept under her warm belly. The wolf watched everything happening in the lair and decided that since his she-wolf accepted the offspring, it was meant to be. After eating his fill, the puppy fell asleep right under the belly of his adoptive mother. The she-wolf licked him for a long time, and then, for the first time in days, she too fell asleep. Their sleep was deep and serene, as if something bound their two orphaned hearts. The wolf gradually got used to the new child in their lair. He began teaching the puppy to hunt and forage for food. In essence, he taught him all the wolf skills. Time passed and the puppy grew up. He even looked a little like a wolf and had wolf-like habits. But the leader understood perfectly that the dog would never become a wolf, and the pack wouldn't accept him. The wolf then made the only right decision, to take the puppy to humans. The nearest village was not far, and in the morning, after taking the puppy by the scruff, the leader set out on his journey. He often stopped to rest, but the child couldn't understand what was happening and whined plaintively. In the distance, the village gardens appeared. The wolf waited for an opportune moment and sneaked into the human yard almost unnoticed. He left his adopted son in a neighboring yard and began observing from afar what would happen next. The puppy ran around the yard, whining loudly, calling for its adoptive parents. But they were nowhere to be seen. At these sounds, a boy ran out and halted, marveling at such a wonder in his yard. He took the baby in his arms and held him close. With quiet, kind words, he began to soothe the puppy and stroke his head. The boy ran home with his find, and the grey predator returned to the forest to his she-wolf, calm about his adopted son's fate. He was certain that he and his faithful friend would have more pups. The boy ran into the house with the dog in his arms and shouted, "Dad, look what I found." "Yes, this is a real thoroughbred hunting dog," his father said in amazement. "Where did you get him?" The boy's father was a renowned hunter in those parts. "Someone must have thrown him into our yard." "Can we keep the puppy?" persisted the son. "This will be my dog and only mine." "Can I, Dad?" And the son looked into his father's eyes with a pleading look. The puppy licked the boy's nose and snuggled even closer to him. Several years passed, and the puppy grew into an excellent hunting dog. None in the entire region were his equal. His wolf upbringing still showed, although no one knew about it. He was ruthless on hunts, and all other hunting dogs respected him, sensing his superiority. The only thing that puzzled the hunter was that the dog completely refused to hunt wolves. The hunter's family adored this dog. He quickly became not just a dog to them, but a true family member, so they forgave him these traits, which were incomprehensible to people. Meanwhile, the boy also grew up. He and the dog became inseparable, and the father often took his son with him on hunting trips. That spring, the wolf's lair was filled with complete happiness and harmony. The she-wolf gave birth to 3 little pups. Blind and wet, they squeaked quietly. The she-wolf licked them and soothed them in her own way. The pups grew quickly, and milk was no longer enough. In search of prey, the wolf constantly roamed the surroundings, leaving his mate with her offspring for long periods. On this day, the hunter, his son, and his dog went hunting for hares. They wandered through the forest for a long time and decided to stop, rest, snack, and prepare for their return journey. They were already awaited at home. Mum surely had prepared a delicious dinner. While they talked, they didn't notice at all that they had arrived at the wolf's lair. Although the dog was behaving very strangely, she was nervous, constantly listening and sniffing, standing at attention, then starting to run around the forest again. "I just can't understand what's wrong with the dog today," the father worried. And at that moment, a huge wolf stepped into the clearing. He had brought prey for his family. The leader slowly turned to face the people, his eyes glistening with anger, ready to rush into one last battle to defend his family. Now it would be decided who would survive, man or wild animal. The hunter raised his gun, ready for the shot. But then the most unexpected happened. The dog suddenly stood between the predator and the man. She seemed to shield the wolf with her body. The very hunting dog that should have lunged at the beast to protect her master's life. "Dad, don't shoot!" the boy shouted. "You'll kill my dog!" And the man lowered his gun. The wolf stood motionless, breathing the clean air through his nostrils. He felt the familiar and dear scent of his adopted son. Could it be him? The leader thought. The dog also recognized his adoptive family. He realized that his mother was now in the lair, the one who had fed him with her milk and didn't let him die of hunger in the forest. He remembered her warmth, the taste of her milk, her unique scent. The leader raised his head to the sky and howled. At the sound of his voice, the she-wolf appeared from the lair. Slowly, the adoptive parents and the grown-up puppy approached each other. They met, hesitating to come closer. Then the dog, wagging its tail, moved closer to its family. He whimpered and fell onto his back, exposing his belly and expressing his complete submission to them. The dog pressed his wet nose against the cold side of his adoptive mother. The she-wolf began to lick him, just like in his distant childhood. People couldn't look away from this unforgettable sight. "Father, when I found the puppy, I saw wolf tracks in the backyard," the boy said. "I thought the wolves brought the pup from the forest, but I couldn't believe it," he continued. "But now I see that my guesses were correct. Maybe that's why he never hunted those who saved his life. He was ready to sacrifice himself to protect them." The hunter stood silently, processing what he had just heard. It seemed incredible to him, but what was unfolding before his eyes confirmed his son's words. The dog, raised by wolves, had not severed the bond with the family to which he owed his life. The man felt an unusual emotion, respect for the wild predator he had long considered his adversary. "You're right, son," he finally said. "This dog is special. Maybe the wolves gave him something that we never could." The boy smiled, and the dog, as if understanding that his people had accepted and understood him, wagged his tail happily. The wolf and the she-wolf stood watching the humans. It seemed as if they too felt the world had finally fallen into balance. The leader stepped closer, his mate following beside him. They stood near the dog and his adoptive humans. Wolves and people silently studied one another. It was a rare and extraordinary encounter, devoid of hostility. At some point, the wolf howled. His deep, mournful cry echoed through the forest as if he were offering thanks for all that had happened. The she-wolf and the pups in the den responded with soft squeals and joyful whines. The dog lowered his head, honoring his adoptive parents, and the boy whispered, "Thank you for saving him." The hunter lowered his rifle from his shoulder, locking it to show that the threat was gone. The wolves lingered a little longer, gazing at the people and the dog, and then quietly departed. The dog watched them for a while, as if saying goodbye, and then calmly returned to the boy and his father. When the family returned home, the boy couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. His dog was unique, not just because he was an exceptional hunter, but because a part of the spirit of the wild wolves lived within him. Over time, the boy noticed how the dog's behavior differed from other dogs. He was calm, wise, and seemed to understand more than he should. Years passed, but the boy never forgot that day in the forest when his dog reunited with his adoptive family. Every time he went hunting with his loyal companion, he instinctively avoided wolf tracks, knowing that among those wolves might be the ones who had once saved his dog. In turn, the dog never hunted wolves and always showed respect for the forest, the very forest that had once given him life. Back in the wolf's den, the memory of the grey foster pup always lingered. The aging she-wolf would often raise her head to the sky and look toward the place where the pup had once been found. The wolf, too, never forgot that day, the moment of trust that had led him to save a life. The pups grew up under their family's protection, and the forest continued to hold this secret. A story of the unbreakable bond and love that transcended the boundaries between humans and the wild. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.